Welcome back, guys. It's Amaret, and welcome to RPG Unlimited, a podcast about tabletop gaming. We'll be interviewing players, game masters, artists, game designers, content creators for their unique views and experiences within the tabletop role-playing space. Today, we are talking with Renee Rhodes, who is creator and DM of Fate and the Fableminds, an actual play podcast, social media manager for Monocle Society, the creators of Weave, and streamer on Nerd Immersion and Scraticus Academy. She's a writer and content creator, and you can learn more about her projects at radian.com, fatefmcast.com, and monoclesociety.com. I'm going to go ahead and hit that ridiculous wall text thing, which is going to have links not only to the projects and stuff that she has going on, but as well as to captioning, where you can support both myself and her, and more. So, with all that taken care of, hello Renee, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing very well. I'm excited to be hopping in and recording a podcast, one of my first weekends in Seattle, so.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I am Renee Rhodes. I really like the colors blue and purple, and probably like mirrors way too much. Mysteries are one of my favorite genres, even though I have yet to write them into more of my own stories, and can't wait to do that. And I think that's about it. I mean, there's probably a lot of other stuff, but those are the three things that I can think of at the top of my head.
Understandable. Blue and purple, I agree. Okay, so how did you get in tabletop role-playing games?
That is a very good question, especially since at first I didn't. I tell this story reasonably frequently because I feel like it's very indicative of a lot of experiences that just aren't as well known. I walked away from my first game thinking, I'm never gonna play again. It's just not for me, and that's okay. Different people like different things, and I just clearly don't like role-playing games. I was very wrong. There were a lot of situations and aspects of the situation, I suppose, that affected my enjoyment of the game. I was hungry. I didn't realize we were going to be sitting so long. I didn't realize I personally like to have a sketchbook when I play. I didn't realize all of these things. And by the time I did, it was about 3 years later when a couple of friends had convinced me to come back to try a second game. I was very reluctant. I was very nervous, and it went fine. It went actually better than fine. I am a writer. I am a storyteller. I am an actress, and I was able to use all of those things. And I was suddenly surprised. I would say pleasantly surprised, but I also was then contending with the impression I had of what gaming was and challenging that. So I went back for another game and another, and then ended up going into a game store and joining a campaign kind of by accident. And things took off from there, and I'm glad because wow, my life has changed so much for the better because of role-playing games, and that would never have happened if I had walked away for good.
Understandable. Which is a very different story from what you hear a lot of people say. It's like, hey, me and a group of friends in high school decided we wanted to play, and we started playing. You know, it's very rare to hear of someone who went in and didn't have a good first experience and came back.
I'm glad to be back.
Hello. Sorry about that, guys.
Hi, welcome back.
Thanks. When you get 5-year-olds sharing a room, sometimes it doesn't go great.
Yes, understandable.
So, okay, we had just talked about your experience with first getting in and it being so wildly different from what we usually see happen with the whole you're either in it or you're not, basically, you know.
Yeah.
How would you say that really affected your perception of the game coming in as someone who initially thought they wouldn't return?
I think I fell into the mindset of stereotypes. My perception of the game was what I had seen on the media, and especially since I didn't enjoy it my first time, I think it solidified some of those stereotypes. And now being on the inside of gaming, playing so many RPGs a week and loving every second of it, I hope to challenge others' perspectives and those preconceived notions, those stereotypes that people cling on to, because I know what it was like to believe them and I know what it took to overcome them.
Okay. What would you say for you is what really, really changed it?
Oh, goodness. There's got to be a moment. And I think that our first campaign was inspired by Guardians of the Galaxy. It was kind of accidental. One person mentioned that they wanted to play a raccoon, and suddenly everyone in the group had attributed a character to their character that they were building, and we had a story. And so, because Gamora inspired my character and Nebula inspired my friend's character, they were adopted sisters. And there was a moment when they encountered their father in the story for the first time. She and I were both crying in the middle of the game store. And when the party didn't really understand, she stood up and just yelled, "You don't understand. This is our father." And like everyone in the game store turned to look at us, and we were just standing there hugging and crying over the fiction we were creating in real time. And it just felt so immersive. It felt so real and valuable. And I think that's when it kind of clicked for me that I loved doing it and that anyone can do it. Maybe you need different games or different mechanics to make something work for you. Maybe it's a matter of preference, whether you like combat or role playing or mystery and intrigue or just a shopping trip. But there can be something for everyone here.
I agree with that. One of the things that I've used as an allegory especially when talking with people who identify as female or who played with Barbies growing up, it's like, you remember those times playing with your friends or your siblings with Barbies? This is like playing with Barbies, but you've got some kind of rules to prevent one of them from becoming Cinderella and the rest being like the evil stepsisters. You know? Because that's a trope. That's a playing with Barbies trope.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll take it one step further and say we used to quite literally LARP in our backyard. We just didn't know that that's what it was at the time. But when we were imagining being on the high seas pirate ship, or when we were all princes and princes of neighboring kingdoms, that was role playing. We just didn't realize it at the time, and it wasn't that far of a leap of the imagination to get into a game that facilitated that.
And I think one of the big things there is growing up, we're told it's called playing make-believe. And then we grow up and we're told it's role-playing. And so we separate a thing from itself, essentially. It's like, it is this thing. It is this thing. These things are not at all alike, except they are exactly alike.
And I'll be quite content playing make-believe for the rest of my life, thank you.
It's so much better than real life 90% of the time. Just, the ability to, like, step out and do something that you couldn't do otherwise, no matter what the situation is. Maybe it's just whether it's something you can't do due to ableism, or just financially, oh, hey, I can't go out and explore these things, but I can in this thing. There's so many things it's useful for.
Yeah.
You're one of the social media managers for Monocle Society, which are the creators of Weave and other games. Could you tell us a little bit more about Monocle Society?
Sure, I can. And I am actually the social media and marketing specialist for Monocle Society, which is very new, to the tune of I started 2 weeks ago, and I moved to Seattle for this position. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled about the position in general, and I'm thrilled about all of the amazing things we have on the horizon. I'm going to talk about what I can, because some of my job is covered by NDA, but at the same time, we have a lot to look forward to, and I would hate to not talk a little bit about it. So I have a copy of Weave right here, which I set something on top of. Terrible idea. This is Weave, and it is a game that is a hybrid game. It coordinates with an app on your mobile device or your desktop, and you have cards that you can scan in, and there are aspects connected to each card within the app related to theme, locations, plot, and to characters. So the storyteller can scan cards in to inform the narrative that they are going to weave for their players, and the players scan cards in to help structure their character. And then there are also dice, which are rolled to overcome challenges similar to many other RPGs. And I discovered this game at PAX Unplugged in 2018. I loved it pretty much right off the bat because it was very easy to pick up, which is one of the aspects of what drove me away from D&D the first time I played. I found the rules overwhelming, and I found it incredibly overwhelming to be told you can do anything you want to. Because I'm not always that great at decision making. So this was something that was easier to access. And as I started playing it, I realized that it really does focus on storytelling and role playing. And yes, it has rules and mechanics, but rules and mechanics that are very friendly to the story. And that's something that's always been important to me, and I feel important to a lot of the people that I regularly game with. So I started playing it, and I ended up streaming a long-form game called Dynama, which was a play set I wrote because this set of cards, this dice, work for a number of play sets. Play sets are settings like space or high school hallways, or for Dynama, it was a high magic, high technology future, post-apocalyptic. The world has ended and grown back, and now there is magic everywhere and death robots wandering the world. I had so much fun writing it. I had so much fun streaming it because it was a huge first for me. My first streamed campaign, my first game that was not D&D. It was big, and I fell in love with the game more, and I learned more about it. And then this position opened up, and I went for it. So after the entire process, I find myself here working at Monocle Society for 2 weeks now and really loving it. Really loving it so far.
It sounds really, really awesome.
Yeah.
I know I caught bits and pieces of Dynama over on Scraticus. So it looked like a lot of fun. Like I said, only bits and pieces for me, though, because time did not agree.
That's how a lot of my life is, too. I try to catch streams where I can, but Dynamo was very special to me, and I think it resonated with a lot of people, and it was an important story. Yeah. We told an important and valuable story, and we're all going to walk away with memories. Like we had an emotional support frog in the game that one of the players, J Grave Art, actually made support frogs for each of us. And I'm going to take it up to be at my work office, but right now it's on my dining room table, and it is definitely the best emotional support I could ask for. And yeah, it was a really rewarding game, and I can honestly thank them for, well, putting on a great show, for one thing. I like to think that helped in my consideration for this position, but also in just being the emotional support behind the scenes, because it's not easy to apply for a job across a country and know that you're up against so many other people on LinkedIn, and it's definitely nerve-wracking, and they were there every step of the way, like an RPG family can be, and I'm very grateful for that.
That is one of the things I can say I've noticed since I got active with RPG community on Twitter, is just the immense amount of support. I mean, granted, you do need to build your friendships, carefully, because you can very easily end up friends with people who maybe aren't the greatest people or maybe don't reflect your values. But, I mean, take a month, maybe, and you should be able to find your set of people there that you really resonate with. So.
Yeah. I've been very blessed to find several great, wonderful groups that I've been able to connect with.
I can say the same.
That's so good. Oh my gosh.
Great. Yeah. I think we share one, which is Scraticus's Academy.
Yes.
Oh God.
Several within Scraticus's channel, I would say too.
Yes, there's yes. Words start to fail.
Yeah.
You also write and run an actual play podcast that's Fate and the Fable Maidens. What has it been like running that?
So I started Fate and the Fable Maidens with 3 of my best friends, and while one of them has had to leave the show because life stuff, we created something we are so proud of and happy with, and it's family friendly, which was very important to us. None of the 4 of us who originally started the show had gotten into RPGs until college or afterwards. And we think that part of it was because of the media we were presented with. And if we could present media that families would feel comfortable sharing with their younger children, then it could introduce them to the game sooner, and maybe will help other people find a game that they love sooner than we did. It's been a wild and wonderful experience. It's pretty much how I've plugged into the online gaming community. I can put it solely on the back of Fate and the Fable Maidens. And I'm still creating this wonderful show with my friends. And we love what we're doing. We love our characters. And I'm excited for what the story holds. But the community that we've seen grow around the show and the response we've seen to family-friendly content, but also all women content, is very humbling, and we're grateful for it. It's not something we expected to see grow nearly as much as we've seen grow in the past year. and it's only been a little over a year now, but it's going to continue to grow, and we're going to continue working on it. And we are going to roll with the punches. We're going to see what we can do with this. We're going to D&D Live. I'm going to be going representing the podcast in May, and we have a new cast member coming up maybe sometime in the future. And basically, there's a lot to look forward to, and I'm excited to see where that continues to go.
It's really exciting. I know I didn't see a lot of stuff as far as D&D in media growing up. A lot of that's probably got to do with how I was raised, which media really wasn't a thing. We had news, straight up just the news, Jeopardy, and MASH. That was it.
Okay, yeah. Not a lot of content with D&D in it.
Yeah, and so, but that's one of the things I'm noticing is that, you know, if you go into the history on it, yeah, there was some scary media around it for like a long time, and I think it's really interesting that you took a take of what if we took it and presented it in a family-friendly way and said, hey, it's not this thing that it's been made out to be. It's really this, and it's really cool, and yes.
Yeah, it's important to us for families to feel comfortable listening to our podcast with young kids in the car. And every family is different. Every family has different expectations. And I learned that especially running a game just for my family last Christmas, because every person from a different generation had different expectations of D&D and what it is. And to overcome that, we felt it was important for us to create something G-rated. So it's very much, it feels like a Saturday morning cartoon, and I love it. We've delved into emotions. There's some deeper topics there as well. But I pull inspiration from shows I love, like The Dragon Prince, Avatar: The Last Airbender, She-Ra. Heck yeah. So it's fantastic to try to create something tonally similar to those shows that is a D&D actual play podcast that hopefully families can listen to in road trips and enjoy.
It's interesting where you took your inspiration from. My 2 5-year-olds have been around D&D since they weren't even a year old. They had their first die. Granted, we did the smart thing and got the ones too big to go in a person's mouth at any age. Well, okay, maybe an adult could, but you really shouldn't. You know, we got them their first D20s, which are like, D20s.
Yeah.
And they recently started bugging. They want to start playing too. And it's interesting trying to figure out how to make the system a little bit more friendly for 5-year-olds. Because It's like, okay, we have to axe so much of the mechanics and so much stuff just on the character sheets. Like, hey, these are kids learning to write, but that's going to be an exciting journey too, because it's like teaching little girls to play.
We do the same thing with the podcast. Is we end up playing a very rules light version in the hopes that will be more easily presented to a younger audience or to beginners.
Yeah.
Either or.
I can say that's one things, you know, for me it was a little bit different as a beginner. I hounded my dungeon master for the Dungeon Master's Guide before game. My very first game, because I was like, no, I have to know everything. I can speed read through this thing. You won't believe it. And I did. And he's like, okay, you did that in an hour. I'm like, yeah, I did that in an hour. You skim.
Wow.
And so I was able to get enough of the stuff that wasn't in there, because there is, I don't care what anyone says. The player's handbook is missing a lot of stuff information-wise that, for some people, could be very crucial to how they play their character. Information on settings that, unless you grew up reading lore books like the Dragonlance series and all that, you don't have. And you can go online and go to the wikis and get that information, but it's so much faster to go to the Dungeon Master's Guide and get what's really the abbreviated, quick and dirty, here's what you got to know about this thing.
Yes.
I realized that I kind of skipped ahead there in my questions earlier. Monocle Society also has Daemon Trilogy, Sub Rosa, and Dozens Donuts. Do you know anything about those games that you can share with us?
I know that they are both worth checking out, but I haven't actually gotten the chance to play them myself. I think that's partly because I've only been there 2 weeks, and Weave is a big focus for us right now because there is so much exciting coming up. Like, it is the first tabletop mixed reality hybrid game, and that is so exciting and a lot of work on the horizon.
Mixed reality?
Initially...
Wait, what?
Mixed reality. I know, it's very cool. So there are so many implications for what mixed reality could bring to our real world. But one of the important things for us is to have a foot in the door for tabletop games so that we reserve a space for the community as the potential for mixed reality grows. And it's very, very cool. I work with fantastic developers who are working in a 3D space right now, and there's a lot of implications for what it could bring to storytelling or to game night. That's very, very cool. So Weave is what initially drew me to the company, and I'm excited to play their other games, but I have not yet.
Understandable. I know I saw We've really shown up on Twitter roughly about the time of your move, so makes sense.
That's me.
See, we did that. Okay, so you stream on Nerd Immersion and on Scraticus. What has that been like, and what have your favorite games been on those channels?
Well, I have 3 games to shout out. And the first, I started streaming on Scraticus Academy a little over a year ago. And that was unexpected. I actually thought that I was asked because of the podcast, Fate and the Fable Maidens. But it turned out that we just kind of ran into each other in social circles. And I joined a one-shot, which was one of the most memorable one-shot stories I had ever played in. I remember hiding behind my hands at a huge betrayal I never saw coming and just loving every second of it. So I joined more and more games, and for a while there my job was full-time, and I could not hop into anything longer form than a couple of one-shots here and there. But once Scraticus moved full-time, I was able to hop into my first full streamed game as a player. We played Cypher System. It is a game called Eden, and I cannot say enough good things about it. And in fact, I think I'm going to tease a few things because I can. And we are currently playing Season 2 of Eden over on Scraticus Academy on Wednesday nights, and I have a huge Eden-related announcement to be making next Wednesday. It'll be on social media and it'll also be in-game, but I've been working on something really big with the GM for that game, Alice, for quite a while. The whole cast is in on it, and we have some artists in on it as well, and it's going to be pretty fantastic. I'm really excited for it. And it's because we love the game so much. It's something that means a lot to us, and we want it to live on. We want it to reach more people. We want it to be accessible because I think it is a valuable story, and the rest of the cast agrees. And we're going to find a way to make that possible more soon.
That's really awesome. That kind of just a bit of information that kind of gives an idea of what the thing is.
It's a hint, hint, wink, wink kind of moment. But It'll be really good. And there will be more information Wednesday with the project launching a little bit further into the year. And also around the same time, I joined a Nerd Immersion campaign with playing D&D, a group called the Belladonnas. And that was also huge because they welcomed me with open arms. And it is a game with friends that I look forward to every other week. And we're about to move weekly. And I'm so excited for that because it's so cathartic to play with a group that I love. And then my last game to shout out is, of course, Dynama, which I talked a little bit about already, so I won't spend too much time here. But that game I will remember forever because of the first it was for me. And I always think about how if things had changed, if things had been different, it could have had worse memories. And honestly, I will fondly remember everything about the experience, even though it happened while I was applying for a job and had huge health problems and major surgery and all of these things that I think could have prevented me from enjoying it if I weren't with such an incredible group who shouldered the storytelling together. It was a joint effort. And if that meant I had to stream from my bed recovering from surgery and on a lot of pain meds, play with that group and tell that story, then gosh darn, I was going to do it.
That's a lot of dedication there. I think it's important for everyone to have that at some point, if you're gonna be doing this as a long-term thing, to have that experience with that one game that just, will stick with you the rest of your life. Whether it's your first game or your 50th game, because it's powerful, and I feel it's something that can really change players and GMs as future players and GMs once they've experienced that.
I also want to say I have played on Encounter Roleplay before. I had to leave the game that I was regularly a part of because of the new job I started. The stream fell solidly during my workday, and so I couldn't manage that. But I had an incredible team over there as well that I was grateful to play with, and that was a great opportunity. And I'm sorry I had to leave, but also I'm so grateful for the games that I did not have to leave because of the move. And 2 of them are part of Scraticus Academy, and that is a fantastic space with fantastic people. 2 incredible games. I love them. I cannot say enough good things about them. Wow. Eden and Dynama. Wow.
I know. I did a one-shot in the Dark Matter one with Ellis as DM, and that was absolutely insane, and it was left open-ended, so maybe my character can come in on another thing in the future, which would be awesome. It's like,
yes, that would be awesome. I want to
explore this. Okay, so I've always loved space, and for me, it had never previously occurred that space and roleplay could go together outside of when I was a little kid pretending to be the astronaut I was going to someday be. So to experience that in a game, like, I'd reached out because a friend was like, hey, they're looking for players for this thing. You should, reach out to them. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll do that. And it just happened, and it's like, you don't understand what just happened here. You don't. I just got to live out my dream that otherwise can't happen because physical limitations,
Yeah.
And so I want to play that character more. It's like, it was such a tease.
Oh, and they stick with you, those characters that you love and you've only played once. I finished my D&D live character today, and I'm so excited to play her, but now I'm getting too excited to play her, and I'm only going to get to play her for an hour and a half in LA. And so I'm already thinking of other places where she could show up so that I get to love her more.
That's one of the things I did when I started DMing, which is only a recent thing. I've been playing for roughly 5 years, but I was like, I've had all these campaigns where I rolled a character, starting in high school. Okay, I had many years of rolling characters, and that was it. And I was like, I want to play these characters. How can I do that? I'm DM now. I am playing these characters.
Yeah, that's probably what'll happen is she'll show up somewhere in a game in something I run. You'll be like, oh, I recognize that name. Huh.
Yeah, I'm excited. Michael Lane pointed out Arger 37 from Dark Matter did come up in Eden. I remember that. Because I caught the tail end of the season finale on both of those, and I was like, oh, what the?
And I think it's important to say that it did not just come up, but it is somehow essentially tied to Eden, because we are getting more Agro 37 references in season 2, and we're not sure exactly how everything connects yet, but golly gee, it's looking pretty mind-boggling so far. So
Ellis is so good at doing that stuff. She's so good.
Yes. Yeah. I'll have to work on getting some of the Argo 37 crew in on this project with Eden as well, because I think the more the merrier. And if they're tied together anyway, let's get some more recognizable voices in.
That'd be awesome. What? It isn't Blister's fault. I don't believe it.
I mean, have you met Blister?
That's what I'm saying. I don't believe it.
Yeah. I would blame a lot on Blister, to be honest.
Tries to fix things, makes them worse. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to just point fingers.
Yeah. You said one of the things you do is you're a writer. What is one of your current writing projects, if you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. So my current big writing project is I'm actually revising the Dynama playset for Weave. I really liked writing it, but I learned a lot from playing it on stream that I think will affect how it actually plays out for other people. So I'm revising it, editing it so that it kind of reflects what I learned about the world and what I want other people to be able to experience with the playset when and if it becomes available. And I'm just going to say when it becomes available for a greater audience. And I'm excited to share that. But then also, I have a number of novels that I work on. And so I have a long-term project that I'm looking forward to getting back to, spending some time. I started writing it a while ago. It started as a short story and has expanded into something more. And it's middle grade horror. And I want to spend more time with it. I want to work more with it. And I'm hoping to build that into my routine here. Lastly, I have been working on scripts. I'm just going to leave that one there and not delve into it too much. But yeah, I've been working on some scripts.
Scripts are exciting.
Scripts are exciting. Scripts are very exciting.
What advice would you give to someone just getting into tabletop roleplay gaming?
So I think one of the best pieces of advice that I wish I had known was to set your perceptions aside when coming to the table and just allow yourself to be open-minded with who you're playing with, where you're playing, what game you're playing. Whatever you've seen could be true. But a lot of places, it's not. And that could go either way. Like that could be something positive, that could be something negative. But if you leave those perceptions, you're going to see things as they really are. If you find yourself in a toxic situation, absolutely feel free to leave. No one will judge you for that. And if they do, they are not important. But you might find that when you put those perceptions aside, you're in a really positive place. And you might discover more that you love because of it.
Some pretty good advice there. I know myself, I haven't ever experienced a negative space, and I know that I'm really, really blessed on that because I know so many people do, regardless of where they're coming from. So
yeah, I've been in several negative situations starting out and some that just got worse. But even then, I learned so much from the way the important people, the ones that I want to keep around me, rose up in support, and that was very valuable. So I've found a good place. I've found a good group, multiple good groups. And so those negative experiences don't have to weigh me down. I've had them. I'll be honest about them. I'll share about them because people can relate. But I have overcome them in the gaming space, and I couldn't have done it without the amazing people around me. So
awesome. I'm glad that you've, that even when it wasn't great, there's something that you were able to walk away with and that you were able to continue and then find the good experiences.
Yeah. Multiple great experiences. And oh my gosh, we've talked about it a little bit, but I've made so many friends. Like, this is the first time we've really gotten the chance to talk, but I'm grateful for it because I've seen you around, and I feel like connecting with you and forging a friendship with more people in the RPG community is one of the reasons I love being here.
I can agree. I know we've kind of been in each other's peripheral for like a couple months now. I'm like,
yes,
she's super busy. I'm super busy. At some point, we may not be so super busy, but right now.
Hey, we found the overlap, and I'll take it. That's great. Yes. It's a great opportunity to sit and talk.
Another thing, I saw you were in on the upcoming charity in May.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Yes.
Waiting for more information on that, but there's going to be a charity thing ran on, oh God, I don't even remember the channel right now. More info to come on that.
Yes.
Where were we? Okay. What is one of the biggest things you've learned since you started running Fate and the Faithful Maidens?
One of the biggest things I've learned. Okay. I have learned not to let my nerves dictate my gaming experience, because Fate and the Fable Maidens was the first game I DM'd. And it's still going. So it was a huge experience. I felt a little thrown into it, and part of that was on me for throwing myself into it. But at the same time, through that process, I learned that I didn't need to be nervous every time the characters talked to a plot relevant NPC. And I didn't need to be so nervous every time I dropped an important story element into the audio. There were so many things that I was very shaken by in the first few episodes that now come more naturally. And I think anxieties are normal and valid and natural, but it's also exciting to know that looking back a year later, I have been able to overcome a lot of those nerves, and they no longer affect my storytelling in the same way that they used to. So that was a huge thing. And I would say a very validating thing to learn is that I can tell a story and I don't have to be nervous every time I do something with it.
Would you say that starting as a DM and being live at the same time when you do that, would you say that that maybe kind of colored the experience a bit, far as, oh, hey, this is really scary because this is really scary?
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, there are a lot of really scary steps I've taken. I'm scared every time I run a new RPG just because it's different and I have to learn it. And I love doing it. Absolutely. I wouldn't trade it. I would say there's a difference between, like, I feel safe and being comfortable. because I've stepped out of my comfort zone a lot, and it's much easier to do in a safe space where I know there's a safety net. But it's the same with Weave. It was the same with Dynama, and it was the same with even Eden, because it was a new experience for me. And yeah, it started out really scary, but now it's not so bad.
I can understand that. My first time DMing was live. Mine is streamed as well, and it was so nerve-wracking. And then my players had to be butt heads. And what do players like to do to new DMs? Let's see if we can break them of it. Oh yeah, 5 minutes in, just beat red, had to walk away like, all right guys, I'll be back in a few. I need a moment. What'd you guys just do here? And they're great at that. They're really, really great. And I think for some groups that really, really works, and it can be a fun dynamic, long as it's kept in good faith,
Yes.
I'm excited to see what the next brain-breaking thing is. The Beholder.
Same.
The Beholder. So, one of the characters who is from the Abyss, and generally will, attack without impunity anything from the Abyss, hugs the Beholder and protects it from the rest of the players and convinces it, why don't you just be our friend and come with us on our journeys and go see the world?
Yeah.
It's sweet
on the one hand.
But on the other hand, it's like, it is a beholder. What did you do?
It has death rays coming from its eyes.
Oh, not this one,
Can
apparently.
You hug it? Oh, of course not. I had a friend whose first experience playing D&D was a one-shot after she'd had a really crummy day. And she ended up coming to the game store to an event that I organized there once a week. And she showed up, made a character named a dragonborn named Kyle Fosho. And Kyle Fosho hugged one of the antagonist pixies. And Kyle Fosho ended up engaged to her by the end of the game. And the whole game store threw a wedding the next week for the two of them. And now Kyle Fosho's character sheet is hung on the wall in her apartment, in her bedroom, next to a printout that she made that said, "I hug the pixie."
That's so awesome.
And so if that's her one D&D experience and it's framed on her wall, we're doing something right there.
That's pretty awesome. Oh. And of course it was a pixie.
It was a pixie. Yes, it was perfect. It was they were a great couple.
Pixies are great. I've got a project I started working on recently because, and I think I may have said this at my last podcast. Yeah, because it was earlier that week. I woke up, kind of, sort of. I hadn't really quite been to sleep. And I made the mistake of tweeting. An idea that a lot of people liked. And it's like, I got actual sleep later, went back online after I'd gotten actual sleep, saw the notifications and said, oh, I'm doing this thing now? What did I do?
Okay. Cool. Here we are.
Yep. So, that's been an experience. It's a full supplement.
Oh, wow. Yep. Very nice.
Yep. I have never been... I don't dip toes in. I run and jump.
Hey, that's one way to go.
Yeah. It's my only... I have no chill.
I look forward to your full supplement.
We're getting there. A lot of research and maybe a few people I need to reach out that might have a little bit of insight on things. But I've already got my first couple of races done. Just need to fill in the lore stuff. Okay. We're doing it already.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
It's huge.
Sorry.
No, it's exciting. I'm excited about it. I'm excited when other people are excited. It's great.
Yeah.
So, who or what inspired you to start playing tabletop role-playing games?
Who or what inspired me? Wow. I don't know. And I'm actually gonna say no one. No one inspired me. I had people ask me to play role playing games, but there was never a specific inspiration for getting into it. Of course, since getting into it, I've discovered people that I admire and who do inspire me within the space, but not at the get go. I didn't even realize this whole world was here. And there were several people who encouraged me to play that I don't want to play with. And I would rather not play with again. But then as I started getting into it and enjoying it more, I did find a handful of people that I would play with anytime. And I'll say that they inspire me. I'll say that my core group for Fate and the Fable Maidens, Laura Hutton and Samantha Turley. And it is Laura's birthday, by the way, so quick shout out to her. Happy birthday, twin. Yay! And I think it's like 3 minutes left in her birthday. But also the families that I've found since, the players who have welcomed me in with open arms, and they're a constant inspiration for me. The passion that they bring, the ability to storytell, and the ability to share some of the weight and the burdens that come along with life, even though we've never met in person. I think that's pretty inspiring. So shout outs to all the casts of Fate and the Fable Maidens, the Belladonnas over on Nerd Immersion, and Eden and Dynamo over on Scraticus Academy.
I think that's a really interesting thing too, because a lot of people come in with, oh hey, inspiration comes from somewhere, and it doesn't have to. But I think very much the thing that keeps people in anything that they're interested in, if there isn't inspiration at the start, if inspiration comes in while they're doing a thing, I don't see anyone that really sticks with stuff if that never becomes a part of the equation for them.
Yeah, it's important, and it's everywhere around me now, which is pretty stinking cool, to be honest.
Yeah, I can agree. I agree with that. I think with that makes now a good time to go ahead and take a break. So we're gonna take off for a bit, and we will be back shortly, guys. And we're back, guys. Yay! Hi, Panorama of Hell. We see you there. You mind telling us a little bit about Unltd Saga? Because neither one of us have heard of that one, and you've kind of piqued our interest a bit with that. So
we're curious.
Yes. What is this Unltd Saga that apparently may have been a bit of a dumpster fire for someone? Happens.
Yeah. Can I look at this train wreck, please? I want to know. I'm gonna get my bowl of food out of the shot. Yum. I don't know if I have anything that I would consider a worst RPG yet. Horrible PS2 RPG.
Oh, that hurts with a beautiful art style. No!
The art style just like twists the knife.
Yeah. I can see that. No, that hurts.
I know.
As an artist, that hurts. Great art. God, gameplay. No. Okay. I wonder if there's like a tabletop version of it though, because then you can control it.
Well, I mean, yes, always possible. Mechanics, sometimes you'd have to tweak or like, use other mechanics in a world, but yeah, there's always possibilities.
I think that's one of the fun things I discovered when I first started looking at RPGs was how many things were written for shows or for, or for games like that weren't tabletop that got ported to where they would make sense for tabletop. Like the one I'm still dying to do, honestly, is the Sailor Moon one. Because Sailor Moon ever since I was 7 and until I'm a 90-year-old biddy on my deathbed. So
I would love to see that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons I was really excited about Lasers and Liches and them bringing in the magical girl stuff, because I was like, yes! I can let that out.
Too. I love that. We did a Retroverse mini arc in Fate and the Fable Maidens, run by not even me, one of the other players DM'd for that special. And oh my gosh, it was so much fun to create those characters and run around in this retro world with fanny packs of holding. Like, it was so much fun. Props to them for the world they're creating.
One of the things I did, which I want to talk to them about, because I did support at one of the higher tiers where you get an item, and I'm like, I created this thing which is very similar to a thing that is in, Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons, but it's flavored for Retroverse, and it's like the Cape of Many Things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but Retroverse.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it's like, can we make this the thing? Can we make this the thing? Because we've already got a player. Well, two of the players have it. One of them has already used it. It's like we've got this Kender that sits there and makes funny noises and flies. It's great. It's like, it's so on brand for a Kender to do that kind of stuff. It's great. I'm excited for that one. Okay.
Yeah.
So, God, there's so much good stuff out there.
Seriously.
It's hard to really focus on.
You can throw a rock and hit something fantastic, which makes navigating them that much more difficult. I have so many RPGs on my shelf that I haven't played. I want to. They all look amazing. I have a shelf now. I'm so excited. This is one of the big joys of this move is I have a little shelf. It's only halfway full, but it's going to get more full.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
I know at some point I want to run Mouse Guard because I have that. It was gifted to me a while back.
Very nice.
There's a couple I've came across through my podcast that I really want to check out. Market Magic by Breaking the Binary. The idea that they have behind this thing is really, really interesting, and it was created for one of the game jams, and it's like, I want to get this thing and understand it a bit better and incorporate it into my stuff because this is cool, because as they were explaining the game, I was seeing how it could work inside other RPGs so well. It's like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean, even Weave, I now work with this company, and I haven't played all of the play sets that it offers. I think I've played 3 of 6 that are currently in there, and I need to. I don't know exactly when I'm going to find the time, but I need to. Not just because I work with the company, but because they're really interesting and cool. And so I think it's kind of the same with my RPG shelf. As I've played about half of them, I have more, and over time I'll be able to kind of check those off and learn the games and have more experiences and throw some stones and hit some new great games and add to that shelf.
Yes.
It's gonna happen.
How Weave was initially explained to me is that it was a tabletop role-playing game where you used a set of cards that was very similar to having a tarot deck in the game. And I was like,
Yes.
that's something I need to check out because tarot cards are a thing I do. So look at that art.
The art is fantastic. It's beautiful. But it is very similar. It's inspired by a tarot deck. And so it is also somewhat fundamentally different, but it could definitely be read. And I did readings for each of the characters for some of the games that I've played on stream in order to kind of create their characters. And it's a very cool experience.
It seems like it's something that could be an interesting alternative to how the Deck of Many Things works.
Yes.
And it's as chaotic as the Deck of Many Things can be, and I've experienced it in a game. It actually broke the campaign, and we have not been able to return because most of the characters are level 11, and then we have a level 16 and a level 24, which 5e is not written for anything above level 20, so a level 24 character is a problem on a whole nother level there. So
dang.
When 3 people get that dang deck at the same time, that was in the one I was talking about on break with the 21 players.
That'll get you.
Yep. I feel DM could have made a ruling that maybe the other 2 people didn't get it, but it is what it is. So.
Yeah, it's very cool. The story cards, as they're called, are based off of the major arcana, and then the challenge cards, which are, to actually overcome specific challenges within the game, are inspired by the minor arcana. So including cool. Having 4 different suits. So there's gales, stones, brooks, and flames, and each of them represent a different aspect of role playing. Like Brooks is charisma.
They're elemental.
Yeah,
my tarot deck's actually an elemental deck too, so that's really awesome. Who knows? Maybe some person does the weird thing and uses it as like a regular tarot deck. It sounds like it could work.
It could work. I think there's definitely, you'd have to do some hacking to figure it out, but it's definitely possible.
Could be a fun journey for someone.
Yeah.
What led you to playing and DMing streamed games? What do you like about playing publicly?
Oh, gosh. I really just happened on streamed games. The podcast was kind of, we decided to play with friends, and then we decided from there that we wanted to do it well and maybe create something that other people would enjoy too. And so that's how we started a podcast, which I think was a very, I'm going to say the word naive, and I'm not sure it's exactly the right word, but I think it was a very naive way to start a podcast, because we were just like, yeah, we'll do this game with friends, and then if other people want to enjoy it with us, great. Which people wanted to enjoy it with us, which is great, but we weren't super expecting. So we had to definitely learn what that meant, what it meant to play not just publicly, but publicly with a large following. And then going and doing streamed games, oh my gosh, I got a whole different side of things. At least with podcasts, they're edited. So if we made a flub in the audio, if we said something that wasn't family friendly, we could go back and re-say it and fix it in post. But on stream with live mistakes, live responses, it was a different beast to tackle. And I think for me, I've enjoyed it a lot, but I definitely notice moments where I wish I could have delved into a character moment differently. And of course, there are some that are still fantastic and I love them, but sometimes I Renee don't know how to respond if I'm thrown off guard by something. And I know that the character would have responded differently. And I wish I could do that justice, but because it's live, I'm at a loss. I'm just, wow. So I think one of the most recent examples of that is I was playing in Eden this week, and my character was faced with suddenly a number of horrors, including like all of her friends being in danger and her being the only one who was somewhat okay. And there was no good option for her. I mean, there was nothing really she could do. It was pretty helpless. And I think I'm nervous for what it will mean when we come back for next episode and how I play out those feelings, because she struggles a lot with anxieties and panic attacks. And while I've experienced those and can role play them, I want to do it justice, and I want to share that with an audience, and also trying to put that in a story that I know needs to continue and needs to continue live is kind of a daunting task. But overall, I love being able to do it, and I love experiencing games with a community. It seems one-sided to be a part of a podcast, but we never feel like it's one-sided. We don't feel like our table is just for players, for friends. It's lots of friends. It's all of the Fable mates, which is what our community named themselves, which we're still floored by. So we have 4 friends and a bunch of Fable mates experiencing that podcast together. And then with the streams, being able to chat with people in the actual Twitch chat and then hopping over to Discord to yell about things. It's so fantastic. And one of the things I'm excited about for future projects is being able to delve into some of those character moments, whether that's writing a scene that I wish I had done better in prose. I can do to give characters the justice that I want to give them, but also to relive and immortalize some of my favorite RPG moments. And like I said, with Eden, there's a huge project on the horizon that I think will allow a lot of delving into the characters and seeing more aspects of them more fleshed out in a way that we just could not do live, but we can now.
It's really cool. I will say that going into Discord and yelling about the stuff, it's such a different way to decompress afterwards, but it's refreshing because it is a shared experience. So you're able to sit there and while you're playing, you may be able to partially disconnect from the character to interact with chat and have the moment there. It's not quite the same as getting up and being like, but this thing though, that happened, and words that were said, and people that did things, and whoa,
I remember a moment at the end of Eden Season 1 where I was trying to explain to my grandmother what had happened in game, and I was like standing in the kitchen, gesturing wildly, trying to explain this hugely cinematic moment that she was not there for, and because she had only played one RPG before, really had no context for. But she listened and smiled and nodded because she knew that I was excited, and she asked questions like, whoa, did that really happen? And I was like, yeah. And it was so exhilarating. So there's definitely something to be said for having those outlets in your real face-to-face life. But Discord has been very cool because even though it is through a screen, I can still yell with other people who had similar emotional reactions to the story. We're all playing together, really. And if I'm yelling about something that happened with my character, someone in the audience is too, and that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of reminds me of, going back to childhood and playing stuff, and you go in and you tell your parents about the thing, and they're, or your grandparents, whoever you're living with, and they're very much, they remember being children and going through the same thing, and they're very much same thing.
Yeah. I remember one of the first moments when I realized, as I mentioned earlier about us standing up in the game store, one of the first moments when I realized I was going to love RPGs was when my character was able to achieve something epic in combat. And I told the whole story to my roommate at the time, who now has a framed character sheet by her bed, but didn't at the time. And so she was just like, but she was willing to get excited because I was. And so thank you for those people who may not be gamers and may not play regularly, but are willing to share the excitement because we're excited.
And that's a powerful thing. I know when my sister lived closer and I'd visit her and I'd excitedly tell her about things, and she'd just be like, ugh, nerd. And I'm like, yeah, but.
Yeah, always. And proud.
Yeah. And it was just, I'd love to say I could someday get her into it. No, she is just, if it's ever been labeled as a nerd thing, it won't happen. Like, I'm trying to argue in my nephew's favor of having consoles in the house because it's like, no, this is like a cultural thing. You know how people will talk about things that we didn't watch growing up and we didn't catch until we were adults and we didn't understand? This is very much the same thing. Let's not do this to the next generation. They need this as much as we needed the TV stuff.
That's actually one of the reasons I love that Weave is called a storytelling game. That's what it's like tagged as, and I think that's so valuable because there are a lot of people, and the reasons why we don't have to touch on, like, there's a range of reasons why people may not associate positive things with role-playing games or tabletop role-playing games. And so I think that having something that is a storytelling game allows people to feel more comfortable with it if they had those either bad experiences or negative perceptions because of what they've encountered in their lives. So it's a pretty cool thing.
Definitely does a lot to divorce it from the stigmas, it is big, and I think a lot of games could do good by shifting away from that. Maybe someday role-playing games aren't called role-playing games anymore, and maybe that would be a good thing. Yeah.
Come play make-believe with us.
Right? Let's go full circle. We start as little children playing make-believe. We go through school where they teach us not to play make-believe. We become adults. We play make-believe. Okay, maybe if you get into drama and stuff in school, they really encourage make-believe again. Or
yeah, writing. I did that.
So outside of that, if you're not getting into writing and you're not getting into drama, playing make-believe really isn't encouraged once you hit, like, a point in your life where they're like, okay, you're too old for that now. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Never. So how long have you been the words?
Yeah.
How long have you been a content creator?
Wow. I've only been a content creator for a little over a year now in a public fashion. I mean, for the longest time, I had a bajillion chapter ones saved on my computer and very few actual novels. I started writing a little bit more regularly, but didn't do anything publicly with those pieces. So here in this space, the first thing that I released for public consumption, actually, I think, period, was Fate and the Fable Maidens. And it was February 19th, 2018. We'll remember that for so long because it changed all of our lives in amazing ways. And that creation, that content, has spiraled into other aspects of our lives. We've all streamed in one way or another. We have other podcast projects coming up. One of the other cast members from Fate and the Fable Maidens is in the pre-production for an Enneagram podcast with another friend of ours. And then I, of course, have had so many other projects stem from Fate and the Fable Maidens. I honestly think that a large part of why I have this job can be tied to Fate and the Fable Maidens, because if not for the podcast, I wouldn't have been at the convention where I met the CEO and first played the game and ended up buying it. So it's snowballed into a lot of other aspects of my life. And I'm so glad that I started content creating over a year ago, because looking back at what it is now and what it is then, it's humbling and awe-inspiring to me. And I want to keep creating content. So I'm looking forward to being able to say soon, when I get asked that question, that I've been a content creator for 5 years, or I've been a content creator for 10 years, and get to really see what I can do in that time.
It can be so wild, and you never know until you start doing it, for one. And then you never know if your thing's gonna be like really big, or if it's just gonna be your own little passion project,
Yeah.
Or, it's the Wild West. It really is.
And you have to be passionate about it, because it is hard to say exactly what's going to happen with it and what will resonate with people. Some projects you have to be prepared to say, this one's just not working out for me. And I've done that, in this past year, but there are also plenty that are working, and plenty that I've been working on for a while. I actually have a secret project that I've been working on with a couple of other people in the community for, I think, over 6 months now, and it's about to start coming to light publicly. And I have, of course, this Eden project that I've been working on for about 3 months now, and I'm going to continue working on until it launches, but we get to actually start talking about soon. So it's really incredible to see the ones that do work, and what they mean to me, and what hopefully they'll mean to the people who consume them.
Yeah. It's one of the things that inspired me to start doing a podcast was sitting there being like, you don't see outside of conventions, to my understanding. I've never been to conventions. I've got my first one coming up this year, and unless something happens before January, and I managed to go to another convention before this one, I'll be doing my first panel at my first convention. But it's my understanding that generally there aren't a lot of interviews within the space outside of the conventions themselves. And it's like, why is that? These people don't stop working on their things when there isn't a convention,
Right.
And I was like, it could be a really powerful thing to be able to share this kind of stuff more often, and, where more people have the potential of seeing it. Maybe it inspires someone who wasn't interested before in trying a new thing. So,
and one of the things that is like hugely important to me, I would say a core value in all of my content creation, is engaging people and involving people. For Fate and the Fable Maidens, since it's a cast of 4, that means engaging with the community who listen to the show. But for other projects, I will have even more opportunities to lift up other people, to use talent that I know and recognize, friends that I want to support and lift up, and shine light with on their work and their projects. So that's a long-term goal for me as I continue to create content, is to create content where I can create with people and encourage following within the community, following others, seeing where their projects and their creations are going to go as well. Streaming has been a huge part of that, being able to create something, a joint story with people that I had never played before in most instances. And I think that will continue to be, but it's important to me to have things where people can jump in and be involved in creating as well.
Yeah. See, and that's one of the other things is like, people look at streaming, they think of gaming, and it's like, it has the potential to be so much more than that and could be so much more powerful than gaming in the traditional sense of streaming. It's definitely a growing thing, and the ability to connect, it's a lot like, my take on running an interview style podcast on TTRPG. It's the ability to pull strangers together at a table, albeit virtual, who may have never met otherwise, to play a game. That is very similar to the gaming floor at a con. Like, these people that may not ever run into each other again, or would not have otherwise, sitting at this table playing together. I mean, it's a thing, and it's cool.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. Yeah, it's exciting to see, and it's one of the reasons I love playing. It's one of the reasons I'll continue to love playing. I was going to say something. I'm sorry. It's just that, like, a lot of it is so new, right? Like, even RPGs and content creation is new to me, but in general, Twitch hasn't been around for all that long. Streaming as a career hasn't been around for all that long, but it's something that, because we're building it from the ground up, we can help dictate what the perceptions are going to be.
Yeah.
And that's exciting.
Yes, very much. And I think, and that's where the power of the community to sit there and say, hey, this is the kind of stuff we accept, this is the kind of stuff we don't accept. The ability to really mold the entire perception of it over time, I know that TTRPG in the larger picture with streaming isn't necessarily the biggest thing. It's where really, really big shows, like the big one everybody knows, are so important, because they set a stage, they set a precedent, and they sit there and say, hey, this is a thing, this can be a thing.
Yeah, we're building this from the ground up. Let's see what we can, let's see what the final product we can make is.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting to see where this goes overall, because it's just, yes.
Yeah, there's so much potential.
That is the big word of the day. Yes.
Yes. And I think that's one of the things that I'm excited about too, is I am working with a company now that is working with emerging technology and is looking towards the future. And again, it comes back to, I am so excited to see what we build, because brick by brick, we are building it. And when we step back to see the final product, I believe it's going to be something incredible.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait, because it's so cool.
Yes.
What have been some of your highlights and one of your lowlights as a writer and content creator? I say one because I know it can be really hard to put out something that maybe didn't go the way you planned, or,
Yeah, some of the highlights I mentioned earlier, the moment when the Fablemates community picked a name for themselves, which was so cool. I think I'll always kind of keep that as a precious moment for me, because I didn't know how people did that. And it was a huge honor for a group to say, hey, we like this thing. Let's create a name for ourselves inspired by it. There was also a moment where someone found me at PAX Unplugged to give me a piece of art that their 8-year-old daughter had created from listening to our podcast. And that was so important and so valuable. Like I cried. It's beautiful. And I have it with me in my backpack pretty much all the time. We have fish tacos in our podcast. And so she, drew a little taco with a fish tail sticking out of it. And it's just perfect. So that was incredibly meaningful. That's another moment I think that stuck out to me. And then meeting people at those conventions and realizing that people have heard of me or recognize what I do, or stop me for photos. That's humbling and precious. And I'm so grateful for that, because it is an indicator that what I'm doing resonates with people. And I believe every story can have a positive impact on someone. It could be the writer or the creator themselves, or it could be the people who consume them. And some stories have enough to resonate with a lot of people and have the opportunity to the resources to resonate with a lot of people. And I'm very grateful that my content has resonated and that I meet so many incredible people, friends, fable mates because of it.
That sounds great. Chat did bring up a good point, and maybe it's something I should do. I hadn't thought of it before. Thank you, Nordic Greek. So if you're just tuning in, my name's Torn Pixie. This is the RPG Unlimited podcast, and we are talking with Renee Rhodes, who is DM and creator of Fate and the Fable Maidens, as well as the social media manager for Monocle Society. I believe... Jacked. Did I spell that right? I did.
Yes.
There we go. Spelled it right.
Yeah. Perfect.
So, if you'd like to check out more information, you have that there, except for that second one, because I misspelled Fate. It's supposed to be Fate's FM cast, not Fat FM cast.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Fate FM, yes.
So.
And we, yes, I have a family-friendly podcast called Fate and the Fable Maidens that I make with some of my dearest friends. I recently started this job with Monocle Society, working with the Weave game here in Seattle, which I moved across country for, and it's been about 2 weeks of just awesome adventure so far. And I stream pretty regularly and have a lot of projects upcoming that I'm excited to talk more about. So thanks for joining us.
It's awesome. And yes, thank you for the suggestion, because I hadn't thought of it before. Definitely a thing in the notes. Hey, do this a bit more. Not just at the beginning.
I think you also mentioned one thing that one low. And I think that was, I think it was when my friend Becca left Fate and the Fable Maidens. We created something so wonderful together, and sometimes life gets in the way. And I get it. I respect her, and I totally understand. But I think I had this rose-tinted view of what we created was always going to be the same. And it's not. Things change. And honestly, I had the opportunity to continue content creating through health problems, surgery, and a big move. But sometimes life doesn't allow for that. And so it was very, very sad to see her go. And it also made me kind of rethink and refocus my mentality on, hey, change is okay. And I can respect change, and I can work with people through change. because things aren't always going to be the same. And that's okay. You've got to let go of whatever you created in your head. Things are going to be forever because they're not.
Yeah, that can be a really, really hard lesson. Especially when you've worked on a project and you're like, we've got this thing set and this is how this works and it's great. And then it's like, oh, there's life.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's so true. And like, the podcast is going to be completely fine. It's one of those things that you roll with the punches because sometimes life doesn't cooperate in the way you want it to. And the best way we can do that is try and respect others where they're at and give them whatever they need. And I love her and support her. And I know that whatever she does when she can do it again is going to be incredible. So.
I know as a DM, especially when it's a close friend, it can be rough. I had a player on that was a close friend and it wasn't a good fit. And it was scary approaching them because I didn't want to hurt their feelings, but at the same time, it's like, it just didn't gel for whatever reason, and just, when you have that emotional attachment to people, when you're like, hey, I really want you to be part of this thing, but life reasons and things.
Yes.
Oof.
And I get it. I really do get it. And so, like I said, I'll be cheering her on, but it made me reevaluate. I think that's the word I've been looking for. Reevaluate my mentality moving forward. And so for whatever projects I come up with in the future, I know, hey, sometimes there's going to be change. And it's okay because your project doesn't have to fall apart because of it, because life stuff comes up. Yeah. It may mean you have to get creative. And it means you have to be prepared and open-minded for that. But it's okay.
Yeah. I know we kind of covered this a bit earlier, but we do have people that weren't here earlier as well.
Yeah.
Where did it go? What was your first experience like as a tabletop role player? I know earlier you said it was... We talked a bit earlier. It's definitely very different from a lot of people who continue playing.
My favorite experience?
No, your first.
My first experience. Sorry. Yes.
We can do favorite afterwards.
Oh, yeah. Okay. My first experience in tabletop role playing, I was hungry. And I ended up sitting down in the middle of the dungeon. We'd been playing for about 4 hours by that point. I had not realized that I was making a 6-hour commitment. I had not realized I should bring snacks and my sketchbook. I hadn't realized what all was going to be going into gaming. And I sat down in the middle of the dungeon and the DM said, "What do you want to do on your turn, Renee?" And I said, "I want to eat." And he said, "Well, I think you have some rations in your bag." And I said, "No, you don't understand. I want to leave and I want to go get tacos." And I feel so bad. He looked hurt, and understandably, I was very cranky. I had a headache and I was hungry, and I hadn't realized what I was doing. And there were a number of other things just about like the group and the setting that were not the right fit for me. And I walked away from gaming. He invited me to join a campaign with this group. And I basically said, "Hey, cool. I'm glad you like that role-playing thing. It's just not for me. And that's okay. Different people like different things. It's okay if you like sports. I don't have to like sports. It's okay if I like writing. You don't have to like writing. And role-playing's just one of those things." But it turned out that role-playing is something that I'm very passionate about. And it speaks to a lot of things that I was passionate about, like acting and writing and storytelling, I just didn't realize what the situation could be when I had positive surroundings and a great group of people to play with and a safe space in which to play it. And so now that I have all of those, I have incredible stories like Fate and the Fable Maidens, my podcast. I have Eden and Dynama, which were streams on Scraticus Academy. And I have Weave and a job with fantastic coworkers. And all of that has been possible because I came back to role playing. So thank you to the friends who nagged me and encouraged me to try it again. And even though some of them I don't play with anymore and wouldn't want to, they made a huge impact for me. And I'm grateful that I'm here because of them.
It can be one of those things where it's, like a lot of other things where your first experience wasn't the best, but later you look back and you're like, as bad as that was, it led to good things.
It's very interesting that I can thank a number of toxic people for getting me into a safe space. And I kind of cringe a little bit, right? Because like there are some people who really devastated me and people around me through their actions. And I cringe a little to say they helped me find this, and I'm glad and grateful because of that.
Glad, grateful, possibly a little bit confused.
Possibly a little bit confused, yeah. If not for them, I wouldn't be here, and I'm glad about that at least.
Yeah. It's always interesting when stuff like that happens, because it just kind of goes back to the whole thing. You never know what's going to happen in life and where something's going to take you, and just especially when it's a stark contrast thing like that. Like,
yes.
How, why, just not going to question anymore because,
Yeah. And I am really glad. I thank you, Ikami Black Moon. I'm glad I found a safe space as well because it's been life-changing. I mean, really, truly life-changing. I'm in Seattle. I moved to Seattle last week. What? Like, what? And I'm here. So thank you to those safe spaces. And if toxic people and bad situations were part of the reason I ended up in safe and really positive places, I'm grateful for that. I hate that I had to go through it, and I hate that other people did as well because it wasn't just me, but I'm here and I'm stronger for the things that I've experienced. And not only that, but I can really relate to people who've had bad experiences, to women who have had really sexist experiences at gaming tables, to people who've had toxic friendships or relationships and been tied to them in gaming. And I can speak to a lot of those aspects and yet be here as a stronger gamer who has so many projects, so much content and friends and an important community that I know I can rely on, and I don't expect toxicity from them. I'll still encounter it, right? Like you still run into people. Yeah. And sometimes people run in the same circles as you and you'll encounter that toxicity within gaming. But that to me just means it's more valuable to know that I have safe spaces to return to and people that I can really rely on and shoulder storytelling with me, but also shoulder friendship with me. And if I do encounter toxic people or negative situations that hurt me, I have people I can turn to, thanks to the RPG community.
Totally agree there. I would say one of the other things that comes from those kind of encounters is honestly great stuff to draw from for villains.
Yes.
Like,
so true. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's such an interesting way to look at things, but I definitely have walked away with stories and inspiration for what novels I will create, drawing from my own life experiences. And it helps me tell stories.
Yeah. I think stories would be hard for a person to tell if they hadn't experienced anything like that, but I don't think I've met anyone that hasn't experienced something that they're like, oh, hey, this wasn't fun, I didn't enjoy this.
Right.
So yeah.
It informs your experience, and it informs what you do. And I think there's an option, right? Like, you can choose how you want to take it and what you want to do with it. And what I want to do with that, with my negative experiences, is share them, overcome them, and not be them.
Yeah. It's a huge thing. So I think we're ready for the next one. What has your favorite experience been?
Oh, my favorite experience. So there was a moment in Dynama, which was the Weave stream that I had the opportunity to run over on Scraticus Academy. It's a playset that I wrote for the game, which allows for play in a number of different settings, 6 of which come in the app and more are on their way. So basically, I had a moment in my GM experience where I realized that the bad guy was losing the fight. And their solution was to blow up the machine that they were fighting with and try to take down as many people as possible with that. And I made that decision in my head a couple of moments before one of the characters jumped onto the machine's back. And there was that horrible realization of, if I stick with this plan, I'm going to blow up that character and part of this party. And there was like this moment of, okay, well, I've committed to this. Like, I've started taking actions to make this happen, and I don't want to rewrite it now. So there was some frantic behind the scenes of like checking to make sure everyone was okay, and then taking a huge GM leap and blowing up the party. They ended up surviving thanks to kind of one of those like RPG miracles. And I walked away from the stream for a little bit because I was shaking so much. And I think it was epic. Like, I was on the edge of my seat, and I think that the entire cast was too. But it was so far out of my comfort zone, and it was such a risk that I felt needed to be taken for the story. But it was terrifying. And so I had to like walk away for a second and be like, okay, I just did that. I just almost killed a character. This is a GM landmark for me. And thankfully I was in a safe space where like, that was okay. I could jump way out of my comfort zone and readjust my comfort zone to accommodate my new position, which was way outside the original line. And it was hugely memorable. And I think it was one of the moments in the game where the whole cast and the audience was kind of like, oh, let's stick around and see what happens.
Yeah, I could see that. I haven't had that moment yet. Could have, if the player hadn't decided to hug the thing instead.
Hug the beholder?
Mm. Yeah.
Gosh, it keeps coming back to that player hugging the beholder. It's going to stick with you for a while.
It is. Yeah. It just, we had a long build up to this encounter. They were in an underground cave system. Like, far as us playing, we're every other week on it, and honestly, almost 2 whole months in there as players, you know, not as characters, but as characters, they've been in there a very long time too. Like, I started worrying about the provisions and came up with this chicken that's never ending. You take a bite out of it, it's filling, but you look at it and the bite's not gone from it. Like, rip off a leg. Oh, look, there's a leg again.
Right.
Never-ending chicken. But yeah, no,
That'll
is
stick with you for a different reason. Yeah.
It'll stick because there was so much planning and so much suspense. So.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's still moments that I haven't had as a GM, but I won't know what they are until I've had them, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'll walk away from a game and go, huh,
that happened.
That was an experience. I can check that off the GM bucket list I didn't know I had.
Yeah. I think we all have them. Like, we know of a couple things. Like, I don't plan on ever doing a TPK, but if it happens, that does tend to be a bucket thing. When one of my players overthrows everything and somehow becomes a god, that's definitely going to be a moment. Like, what?
Yeah.
So, and I know that's something you DM long enough, it probably happens. You know, especially if your dice are really, if your dice let it go. Because I very much let the dice dictate a fair amount of stuff. Hence, holding the beholder.
Yes. And allowing that to truly work, because RPGs are magical. Make-believe is magical, and anything can happen truly. Thank you, dice.
Yep. I'm waiting to see what happens with it. I named it Zaxxas. We're going to see what Zaxxas does now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll stay tuned.
Yeah. He'll be... He might have to die.
Yeah.
He might have to die. We'll see.
I don't know. Maybe Zaxxas has another great career opportunity come up and needs to move across the country.
Needs to start, maybe start chronicling stuff somewhere.
Yes, absolutely.
As all great beholders do.
Right.
Needs to go start working on his greatest work ever. This book.
Yes. A guide is, and you're gonna have to come up with a more creative name for it than Zaxxas's guide to something, right?
Yeah.
You know, I trust I'll come up with it.
Yeah. Later love on that. Sounds good though. What systems have you played, and which ones were your most and least favorite?
Okay, so I'm gonna be pretty predictable here and say that Weave is one of my favorites. And yes, I do have a job working with it now, but before I applied for the job, I just loved the game. I applied for the job for a reason. So it's accessible and it's intuitive and it's really unique. Not to mention the integration with apps and mixed reality that provides a lot of potential for storytelling on the go and for storytelling with technology and a lot of really exciting implications. I also really love Powered by the Apocalypse games that I've played, including Monster of the Week, which I've run a one-shot of, and oh my gosh, I'm just dying to run again. I cannot wait. I had such a great experience with it. And I've played a couple of other Powered by the Apocalypse games, including Bluebeard's Bride and some others, and enjoyed the mechanics built in there. I think that I have, again, too many that I still need to play. One of the main that stands out to me is I bought Overlight at Gen Con last year, and I've wanted to play it, but I have not found the time. And so I'm looking forward to being able to play that. And of course, D&D was my first RPG, and as I'm sure it is for many people, and I'm grateful that my RPG library has grown since playing D&D and podcasting and streaming and getting involved in the community. Cypher System. I also play Cypher System on a regular basis, weekly, and I love the flexibility that game gives you for settings and character creation. So Yes, I've played a lot, but I need to play a lot more. And I'm sure then there will be more games out that I want to play. And that's exciting. I can't wait to play them all.
That seems to be the whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's not like D&D was even the first tabletop role-playing game ever. It's just the first one that had a lot of media around it, a lot of awareness of it, because it was controversial. So
Yes, absolutely. I think I'm grateful to D&D for being my gateway into the RPG world, and I can't wait to be at D&D Live in May and share the characters that I'm creating there and performing with so many other amazing podcasters and streamers. And I will always love my D&D podcast, but I'm also grateful for the other games that I've gotten to play because there are so many different worlds, so many different systems that can accommodate so many different players. And I love that.
any thought to running a podcast based around another system?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely thought about it. Right now, running an actual play is a lot of work. And I have a couple of other podcasts and streams that I want to see through first. Dynamo is a huge step just to run something in another system in a closed campaign. I mean, it ran for 3 months and it was a great game with great people. But it was a step out of my comfort zone. And I think that Weave has great podcast potential. I think there's actually, I might be doing a one shot. By might, I am, but I'm not sure it's public knowledge yet. I'm doing a one shot for Weave for International Podcasting Month, and I'm excited to see how that game translates to a podcast form. And there are a lot of other games that I think if Fate and the Fable Maidens finishes the current arc, we may look at running in another system. And just, it kind of depends on the story we want to tell and where we're at the time.
Sounds really, really cool.
Thanks.
What kind of things do you do to prepare yourself both as a player and a character before a game?
Yeah, so I have playlists that I've recently started creating. Dynama, one of the players actually created a playlist that I would listen to when planning every session as the storyteller. And so I kind of have picked a couple of songs that fit the characters I play and kind of try and get into their mentality before I play a game. And sometimes I'm a little bit rushed and I don't have the time to do that. So when I don't have time, I think about the relationships that they value. And by thinking about those relationships, the key people in their lives, or the connections that they find precious and dear, I'm able to connect with them quickly and get into the game.
It's pretty cool. I recently started doing the playlist thing too, and it's when you start getting into the headspace of a character and like, oh hey, this is the kind of thing that fits maybe this life event for them, or maybe when they're feeling this emotion, this song connects for them. It's a really interesting way and maybe another depth to really getting inside a character and being like, all right, this is the mode of operation, so to speak. So.
You can find songs that are all encompassing, but you can also find songs that are specific to different emotions, connections in their lives or situations.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like, even as a personality thing, like, hey, maybe this character kind of leans towards one genre more, and that can speak a lot too. It's just, there's a flexibility there, and I think it's something that with social media we might start seeing happen more, because a lot of times people will share them like, hey, you like this character? Check out their list. This is the music they listen to.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of cool. You can get other people in on it too.
Yeah.
Also, thanks, Michael Wayne. I'm so glad that you ran Monster of the Week and that I was part of introducing you to it. That's awesome. I hope you really enjoy it.
I saw a lot of stuff about that recently. What is Monster of the Week?
Monster of the Week is a Powered by the Apocalypse game that is inspired by Monster of the Week structured television shows such as Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Supernatural. So essentially, the Keeper is the name of the GM. The Keeper structures a monster and creates a mystery that players have to solve. And while, of course, you can have overarching stories with those monsters of the week, the players still have to investigate and discover how to take down a specific monster in sort of episodic efforts until they reach the conclusion of the story.
Ah, that sounds cool.
It's so fun, and it allows a lot of like creativity because the way you build a monster is like very it's not like written mechanically. It's freeing and gives you a lot of permissions. So for my first game that I ran, there was an electrical monster that fed off of sleeplessness
Oof.
through people's phones. So like it drained their energy as they played games or as they watched Netflix or whatever. And it was so fun to kind of create like what its weaknesses were and how the players could take it down, how the players could even figure out what it was in the first place and then take it down from there. So
a discreet cautionary tale on spending too much time on your phone.
It may or may not have been inspired by an article about how people are playing too much Fortnite. And I just saw it in passing and was like, cool RPG story. Cool RPG story.
Too much Fortnite. Jeez. I wouldn't know about that. Not really a community I'm in a whole lot.
I've never played, but I hear about it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I suspect the reason people are saying people are playing too much of it is because it is a game that is not. Because I remember there was also too much Mass Effect, too much Halo, too much Doom.
Yep. So. And I mean, I'll self-reflect. I'm on Twitter too much. Yes, I am a social media specialist, so it's kind of understandable. But at the same time, like, sometimes my eyes wish I wasn't staring at my phone so often.
Yeah. So it's almost like the monster might be real to a degree.
Might be.
Look at the insomnia out there.
I've created a monster.
Now you just discovered it. Now we gotta figure out how to defeat it.
We'll start investigating. Let's make some rolls and then we'll see.
Within the tabletop community, what has your experience been? What do you think has been good, and what do you think could improve? And on that end, what would you do personally to improve it?
Okay, so the tabletop community, what's been good is people lifting each other up. I see that all the time. If someone is struggling, people encouraging others to support them, check them out, reach out. I love that. I see people encouraging others to check out projects that aren't their own. It's one of the high tide, like, raises all ships. I think that's so true. And I love that. But I do think that the community has room to improve when it comes to understanding situations that you haven't personally experienced. I know for me, it's definitely hard for me to wrap my head around something that I haven't experienced, but someone else is trying to convey to me. But on the flip side of that, it's hard for someone else to understand who hasn't experienced it when I describe what it was like to feel sexually harassed at a gaming table, and to be sexually harassed at a gaming table. And I think that there's a lot to be said for the community stopping to listen. I think we're making strides. Absolutely. I think we are making progress every day. The more people talk about it and are willing to speak up and speak on behalf of people who need that kind of support. And it's a progress thing. It's something that we're going to see continued develop over time. And it's something that we have to be actively mindful of, in thinking how, in pausing and actively thinking about the way we think. I want to see that continue to change, and I believe it will. But it's also something that I still see and can relate to, people feeling dismissed or stories not being heard because it doesn't reflect someone else's personal experiences. So I think what I want to see from the community is open minds and people listening to one another instead of just vying to speak for themselves.
That could definitely be a powerful thing, because I know a lot of people will generally speak from their own experience, and generally it can be hard to step outside of yourself and say, well, this is my experience. That doesn't mean these other things aren't valid, haven't happened, don't exist, are imagined or whatever, and that's definitely a thing. It's,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we see that, if not daily, we see it once a week. So.
Yes.
The battle is raging.
Yeah, and we're fighting valiantly. Change is going to happen. It's just a matter of how many warriors we have fighting, and we'll see that change coming soon. I believe it.
I feel that's where the public platform has been potentially really helpful, because it's been able to show people something that maybe they wouldn't have seen just because of the scope of an area, you know? So, yay! What is your favorite style of play? Theater of the Mind, grids, rule of cool, that kind of thing.
Oh, different for different games. Fate and the Fable Maidens, we kind of play by the rule of goof, which I guess is similar to the rule of cool, except if it's really funny, you can totally pull it off. But that's because we are a kid-friendly comedy, and so there are some pretty goofy things that happen, and that is totally okay. But for other games, I definitely tend a little bit more towards rule of cool. And what that looks like to me is I like when players have ideas that I would not have considered, especially when they're justifiable through story means. And I love being able to pass the mic to a player and let them kind of take the reins in storytelling that. Player agency is very important to me, and I truly believe that if it's joint storytelling, we need to be telling a story together instead of one person having a be-all end-all say. And so I love seeing what creative ideas players bring to the table.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. I think that about covers our questions that we had pretty much figured out early in. So we are open for a live Q&A at this point. If you have any questions for Renee, feel free to post them in chat. We did have one earlier from Michael Wayne. What are different ways to play Wave if you don't have a phone the app works on?
Okay. So there is actually a number of ways to play Weave. Currently, there is a iOS app for Apple products. There is a Android app for Android products. There is also a desktop app, which you do need a webcam to make work because the cards do scan in. And you can hop into the Weave Discord in order to find more information on that. I expect that the app will be more readily available as more updates come down the line, and we are working a lot at Monocle Society to make sure that the game is working the best it can and is available and accessible to as many people as possible. So I hope that if you don't have a phone that can access the game, I understand that and hope you do have something that could, because it's been a great game for me.
Accessibility is a really, really big thing, and it's nice to see the growth in awareness around that within the community, because stuff like Dots RPG with their Braille dice and the work they're doing on making Braille versions of the core books available. Oh my God, that's an undertaking.
It is. It's so valuable, and it's definitely, I think, hard. Because Weave is a hybrid game. It's a technology hybrid game, and that's great. But we also have to be creative in finding ways for people who have different technology to access a hybrid style game.
It is a really different thing too. Like when you said that it was a mixed reality thing, like it hadn't ever occurred that TTRPG could be a mixed reality thing, and it's like when you said it's like, oh wow, and then it was like, but why hadn't it occurred previously that that could be a thing? Because duh, it was a dumb moment for me. Like, well, of course it can.
Well, of course it can, but also, I mean, there was a time when we couldn't imagine what smartphones look like. So it's,
oh yeah,
with emerging technologies, it's sometimes hard to realize the full extent of the ramifications until you're living it. And I know that that's something I experienced with, now that I work here, I'm really seeing what the potential for this is. But before then, I just couldn't quite wrap my mind around it.
Yeah. I mean, when you think back within the sci-fi genre and stuff, and yes, I pull heavily on Star Trek because that was my thing growing up. I think the thing we've got that they had closest, because boy, those communicators, we're still not doing this to talk, but the hologram rooms, we're close to those, to the holo rooms, and that's, man, can that happen? Because it's a holo room for D&D would be.
I do want to shout out, since there is kind of the question in chat. You can find out more about Weave at weave.game, which is a hyperlink to the Monocle site as well.
Let's see if I can get this right.
Yeah, sure.
There we go. That looked
Yeah.
Great. Yes. Yeah. Thanks for the win.
Yeah. I love it because it's like a great social media. It looks great on social media. So like, good on them for getting weave.game.
Okay. Miniax Manager says, hey, I thought of a really good mixed reality game, but I know nothing, so you can hear this idea for free. The game is like the world of the movie They Live, where some people are regular but some are aliens or something. You get pictures of the aliens to get points, and the better the shot, the better the score. Maybe it's stupid, but anyway, it's out there now.
Hey, there's going to be so much mixed reality games available. I mean, it's so much different than virtual reality and even augmented reality. And fact that the virtual world could respond thoroughly to the real world around it is still pretty mind-boggling to me. There will be some really awesome games that'll be available, and I'm excited that Tabletop has already kind of reserved a space with the work that Weave is putting in and Monocle Society is putting in for the Weave game, which means it'll be really awesome ways to access tabletop gaming and mixed reality as well. But mixed reality has a lot of potential in beyond gaming as well, for education, medical fields, etc. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, that'd be really cool.
Nordic Greeks asks, what is your most memorable instance as a player?
As a player. So there was a moment, it was one of the early epic combat moments where my character was being carried away by a dragon, and the dragon ended up dropping her. A bard cast Featherfall on her, so she was falling to the ground, and the dragon landed below to try and continue the fight. And so my rogue had the bard cancel Featherfall. She dove out of the sky to strike the dragon with her sword and epically slayed the dragon and just took the damage and walked away, limped away with a bunch of dragon scales and an epic story. And I remember it feeling so cinematic and fantastical. And that was one of the first moments where I was like, yeah, let's do this more. I like this thing.
That sounds really, really cool. The closest moment I've had that was similar, and it did involve a dragon. First of all, Dungeons and Dragons, who named it Dungeons and Dragons? Because dragons in the game, I in 5 years, I've encountered one, okay? And when it happened, one of the players decided what they were going to do. So they were going to try and ride the dragon, this little kinder. And did not go over well. Did not go well.
Oh. I've fought a lot more dragons in my Rise of Tiamat campaign than I had in my career in playing D&D before that. Go figure.
Imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's one of the things I'm excited about because I know with mine I plan on lots of dragons because Retroverse, that's like...
yes, so cool. Well, yes. The Xenon dragon is my favorite. Sorry.
Well, including Uis and Chris both in, it's like Uis's illustration of himself for the Retroverse is a shirtless dude with a biker helmet and a box full of wormlings. Like Princess Foch was in that box, I'm pretty sure. She's gonna be in the game because she's in the box.
I would love that. The more places we see her, the better.
Right? She's so awesome. So, was there another? What do you think is the benefits or disadvantages with cards over dice?
Okay, this is a good question. I'm not sure. I might need to ask some clarification. I haven't played many RPGs or really that use cards over dice. But the interesting thing about Weave is that the cards are like the storytelling part of it, essentially the character sheet and the helping build the structure for the storyteller as well as the character for the players. But then Weave is actually still told with dice. It's just they're regular D6s, though the Weave dice have symbols on them. We learned in Dynama that you can easily play them with regular D6s and just assign numbers to what the symbols would be. And so the cards are scanned in to like create a character. For instance, if you scanned the coin card in, you would have options for backgrounds, talents, and flaws for your character. And you have the opportunity to choose one from each category, essentially. I'm abbreviating a bit for time, but you take one from each category and create your character from there.
Sounds really, really cool. Okay, so were there any other questions?
I did get clarification from Michael Wayne. So for disadvantages and advantages on using cards versus dice for storytelling or for RPGs, while I don't have very much experience with it, I think you can just as easily tell fascinating story with cards, especially if there's good design and good mechanics. There's no reason that dice have to be the most moving factor for RPGs. I think there's a reason they are, because there are so many mechanics that can be built off of multifaceted dice. I mean, we see D20 systems, D6 systems, because you can come up with so many options. And cards are two-sided, but of course, for those who have some familiarity with tarot, you could also play with the cards being inverted. So there could be some really interesting storytelling aspects to a card-based RPG. I haven't seen them, and I would love to. And Weave is definitely part of the storytelling, comes from the cards, but a lot of the decisions are still made by dice. So I don't know that it's entirely that, but it's a step in that direction, using both cards and dice and a mobile app. So
it's a different thing. I
is.
think part of the reason why dice are so prevalent, I mean, we've seen the designs out there. It's, to a degree, I think it's people really enjoy just having the dice to begin with, and it's an excuse to go out and be like, but I need more dice for this thing. I need these dice for this system and these dice for this system. I
love my dice collection. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
I
gotta say, I've found a lot of favorites on Dice Envy. It's why I'm affiliated with them, because I was like, I like their stuff. I'm gonna reach out to them on this because, God, pretty sparkles. So, sparkles get me every time. So,
same. I like sparkles and swords.
Could you imagine a set that had like little teeny tiny sword in the middle of the D20? Yeah. If I had the patience to make molds around an existing set and then like make a little sword, that'd be cool. Okay. So was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I think I have talked about a lot of aspects of my life, and I'm really grateful to everyone who's here. I hope you enjoy anything that you've found through this, whether it's an RPG I talked about, a podcast or stream I create, and any of the games that we've talked about on this channel as well. I think there's a lot of great things to take away, and I hope that you have been able to take something away, and thank you for coming by. Thanks for listening.
Fair. If you guys would like to check out the two channels that we did kind of touch on quite a bit far as playing here on Twitch, you can find Nerd Immersion and Scraticus. Those links are in chat for you. So, probably should have done that earlier.
That's okay. We did it now.
I need another list. These things. Thanks for being on my show. It's been great having you here and talking.
Thank you.
And it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for giving me something to do my first Friday in Seattle, and getting to talk about RPGs, which I definitely love. And it's been an exciting journey so far, and there's more to the adventure still ahead.
Yay!
Yay! Let's see what happens. Sparkles and swords.
Yes! If you would like to keep up with Renee and her projects, you can do so by checking out radian.com, bfmcast.com, and monoclesociety.com, as well as her Twitter at radianr. Yeah, it's been fun. This has been RPG Unlimited. You can find us here on Twitch every other Friday, and then on other platforms the following week, so you can expect to see it on YouTube and on Anchor by Wednesday at the very latest if everything goes sideways. So yeah, thanks for coming by, guys. We'll catch you guys next time.
Thank you. Bye.